testing the Zoom volume. Councilor Ryan, if you can hear us on Zoom.
I can hear everyone.
Wonderful, thank you.
It seems like Councilor Avalos' Zoom link isn't working. If someone can send her one.
Out of here now.
You're here? Yay.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Diego.
Good morning. I call the meeting of the Climate Resilience and Land Use Committee to order. It is Thursday, January 29th at 9:30 a.m. Diego, could you please call the roll?
Good morning. Avalos,
Present.
Canal,
Here.
Bryan,
Here.
Murillo,
Here.
Novick.
Here. Claire, could you please read the statement of conduct?
Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Climate Resilience and Land Use Committee. To testify before this committee, in person or virtually, you must sign up in advance on the committee agenda at portland.gov/council/agenda/climate resilience and land use committee or by calling 311. Registration for virtual testimony closes 1 hour prior to the meeting. In-person testifiers must sign up before the agenda item is heard. If public testimony will be taken on an item, individuals may testify for 3 minutes unless the chair states otherwise. Your microphone will be muted when your time is over. The chair preserves order. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or committee deliberations will not be allowed. If you cause a disruption, a warning will be given. Further disruption will result in ejection from the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave once ejected is subject to arrest for trespass. Additionally, the committee may take a short recess and reconvene virtually. Your testimony should address the matter being considered. When testifying, please state your name for the record. If you are a lobbyist, identify the organization you represent. And finally, virtual testifiers should unmute themselves when the clerk calls your name. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. We have 2 primary items on our agenda today. We'll continue our discussion on the PSEF Climate Investment Plan, and then we'll also hear annual reports on the Parks Levy and Parks Levy Oversight Committee. But first, we need to adopt committee minutes for the month of December. And if there is no objection, we can adopt those minutes by unanimous consent. Are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the minutes are approved. Claire, or Diego, could you please read the next item?
Item 2, amend the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefit Fund's Climate Investment Plan.
Thank you. So we have before us a series of proposed amendments to the Climate Investment Plan for this year. There's a number of them that are rather technical, and some of those have some urgency. So I do hope that today we can vote to recommend those amendments to the full council. However, one of the proposed amendments is very significant. The Climate Investment Plan allocates 47% of the funds to energy efficiency / renewable energy programs, most of which is investments in energy efficiency in buildings. It allocates 24% to transportation decarbonization programs. One of those transportation decarbonization programs, one involving offering financing for electric vehicles, was not performing well. People just weren't using it. So PSEF and the committee recommended taking $15 million from that pot and putting it into renewable energy / energy efficiency, specifically to help build more energy efficient units. I have questions about that because 40% of our carbon emissions come from transportation, and only 24% of the PSEF money is going to transportation. And actually, before the Climate Investment Plan, even a smaller percentage was. So I was concerned about shifting money from one too small pot to another already big pot without an opportunity to talk about how we might spend that money for transportation. So today we're going to be hearing from 5 different panels who I'm asking to spend only 9 minutes apiece on various concepts. First, we're going to hear about a plan that's based on something that Roger Geller of PBOT came up with to restore bicycle mode share to what it was 10 years ago. Then we're going to be hearing from TriMet about proposals on how they could use some of this money. Then we are going to hear from PSEF staff and from folks at Self Enhancement Inc. about why the PSEF staff recommended moving the money to housing, and SEI is one of the entities that might get some of that housing money. They're going to talk about what their project is and how that would look like. Then PBOT has an assortment of other possible climate-related uses for the money other than bikes. So they're going to make a presentation. And finally, we're going to hear from folks from the Multnomah Youth Commission about a proposal to expand Youth Pass. So again, I'm asking everybody to keep their time to 9 minutes apiece, and then that'll leave some time for questions and discussion. Oh, and I should give a heads up that there might be a bit of a back and forth between Multnomah Youth Commission and TriMet about the Youth Pass proposal, because obviously that involves TriMet. With that introduction, city staff are in the room for questions. Eric Engstrom of BPS, Sam Barrasso, manager of Clean Energy Fund, James Valdez, PSEF Partnerships and Policy Manager. So, inviting up the first panel, beginning with Congressman Earl Blumenauer. Good morning.
Good morning. For your record, I'm former Congressman Earl Blumenauer, and pleased to be with you here today. For 50 years, I spent a lot of time working to try and develop Portland as America's most livable city. We've had some significant accomplishments. One of the areas with which I am most proud dealt with what we did with cycling, the planning, the infrastructure. Roger, I think, is appropriately focused on what's changed. Where are we? We still have some of the finest facilities in the country. We have a base of support for cycling, but the mode split has been in decline. The opportunity here to help supercharge that a little bit, to get our mojo back. Now, I have not fully understood the protocols here in terms of the ethics guidelines. I have bike pins for you that, with your permission, I would leave, and then you can figure out the reporting requirements. I don't want to get a thwart some sort of ethics dilemma, but for years, this has been a symbol of Portland's advocacy and leadership. It's been on everybody from the Dalai Lama to presidential candidates. I'm pleased to be here today supporting additional investment in cycling, making it possible for people to burn calories instead of fossil fuel. And you will hear some examples of things that people have done. The bike buses, which my grandchildren participate in, really are a source of great pride and an opportunity that enriches communities. I will respect your time. I could go on at great length and will in a different forum as much as you would like. But I appreciate your attention to this today. There are no bad choices investing in the environment, so you've got some great things. But building on this singular investment that's been popular, effective, and makes a difference is something that I would commend to you. Thank you for your attention and allowing me to share some of my biases with you and bike pins.
Thank you, Congressman.
Good morning, councilors. My name is Stephanie Engelsman, and I'm elected to the PPS School Board. I'm also a resident of Portland since 2002 and have been an avid bike commuter since then. And in 2016, my family invested in an electric cargo bike so we could commute around the city with our children. Since moving here, I have seen the increase in bike commuting despite the infrastructure not being there like it is today, and I've also felt and seen the decrease in numbers on the streets. I like this program. I like the idea of spending money on bicycling because it's built on a concept of the fantastic bike bus idea that we've seen work in schools. And as a school board member, I can tell you that the kids who can safely ride bikes to school, they gain independence, a sense of belonging, and it helps get their wiggles out, which means they can pay attention better in class, which brings attendance up, which brings learning up, which is good for the city of Portland. I also know that as a member of our neighborhood school bus, bike bus, as Congressman Blumenauer said, I've seen firsthand how to activate an existing bike network. Some days we roll down our neighborhood greenways, the street packed with smiling, happy families. A few years ago, a lot less kids were biking to school. Bike buses work so well because there are dedicated leaders who understand the routes, who know how to troubleshoot on the way and help make this fun and stress-free to ride downtown. The culture is infectious. We need bike buses at any school that wants one, especially as a district we are tackling chronic absenteeism. Biking Together is a low-cost plan with a potential massive payoff across the city. Finding and funding better ways to get to school and around our city is critical, not only for a city whose goal it is to advance climate justice, but also for a city who believes in public education, a sense of community, and alternative commuting options. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, members of the committee. I appreciate your invitation to be here. My name is Roger Geller. I'm the city's bicycle coordinator. And one of the key elements in Portland's climate action plan is getting to a high bicycle use, 25% mode split by 2030. And if we're serious about climate, we have to have a serious focus on biking. And we have, and we've expressed our focus for more than 3 decades, most prominently on building a bikeway network. Let's see if I can get my slides to advance. This is the bikeway network as it existed in 2000 on the left, rather sparse, greener neighborhood greenways, bluer bike lanes, magenta or off-street pathways. And on the right is what we had for bicycle use at that time, about 1.8% citywide. The darker the census tracts, the higher the bicycle use. Over time, we've built a really excellent network in many parts of town and a very good network in others. And our efforts really seem to pay off. In the mid-2010s, we saw bicycle use in Portland that was higher than in any other North American city. Here we see the bikeway network as it existed in 2015, and we see the bike use that grew in those 15 years since 2000, 7% citywide. And we've continued to build. And no, we're not Amsterdam, not even close, but we're a lot better than we were in 2015. But the results are worse. This is our bikeway network as it exists today, and this is roughly what our bicycle use is today, somewhere down around 3%. We've dropped below other comparable cities. And you can see that the colors have lessened. The intensity of use has lessened. Those thick lines are all protected bike lanes or buffered bike lanes. We've invested significantly, and we're not seeing the results just from building. The bikeway network is a tool. What I'm proposing in this $6.3 million Bikeable Portland program is something that we can do to leverage our investments in infrastructure and activate our residents in order to get our mojo back. This program centers on 2 ideas: giving people a reason to bicycle and then opportunities to do so. A cornerstone of the program called Bike Together builds off the heart of the success of the volunteer-driven Bike Buses program in Portland. We will contract with an organization that will hire ride leaders who will be responsible for hosting daily, regularly scheduled rides and encouraging participation. Basically, bike buses in the program area for people of all ages and abilities. Ride leaders would lead regularly scheduled, advertised rides in neighborhoods throughout the project area. Rides would reliably leave daily from set locations at set times. They would also promote the rides throughout their assigned area in the form of door-to-door canvassing, putting up flyers in neighborhood destinations, use of social media, attending events and public meetings. The program also includes fleets of bikes that would augment our training that we're doing in Portland Public Schools, training PE teachers how to teach kids how to ride so that we can spread that program to triple the schools that we're doing now, because we need not just adults riding, we need future generations riding as well. The second cornerstone is raising the visibility of bicycling by reigniting a civic conversation and getting bicycling back into Portland's zeitgeist. The mayor did an admirable job of that the other day, talking about how Portland needs to regain our former nation-leading status as a bike-friendly city. We need more of that. The program would fund 2 main tracks for advancing a civic conversation. Both involve developing and displaying prominent messages and messengers celebrating and encouraging bicycling that are intended to direct interested residents to the Bike Together rides. The program would also make targeted capital investments designed to be both effective and to engage with the community. The bikeway network in much of the target area is formed by neighborhood greenways, so we're looking at improving conditions on those neighborhood greenways, building more diverters, and also building bike lanes, improving bike lanes where they don't exist, especially on a stretch of Burnside that connects inner Portland with East Portland. And then finally, there'll be an evaluation element. The program is predicated on the idea that bicycling is a good product, that it's transformative at both the personal and societal level. In 2015, the high bike use that we had was based on about 23,000 Portlanders daily biking. Tomorrow, 70,000 Portlanders could decide they wanted a bike, and the system could accommodate them. This program is a new step toward achieving the high goals we've set for ourselves. This slide shows a suggested project area that would be about 11 square miles, about 85,000 people, and would touch districts 1, 2, and 3. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank all of you. And I'm asking my colleagues if we can hold our questions until the end, asking all the speakers to stay, because we should have 40 minutes for discussion. Next, we have John Serra, Local Government Affairs Manager from TriMet.
Morning, councilors. Morning. Give me one moment while I pull up my slides. Good morning, co-chairs Novick and Murillo, and members of the Committee on Climate Resilience and Land Use. For the record, my name is John Serra. I'm the Local Government Affairs Manager at TriMet, and I'm a registered lobbyist on behalf of the agency. Thank you for your opportunity to testify and discuss how Portland Clean Energy Fund resources can be used in ways that clearly meet PSEF eligibility criteria while delivering real, near-term climate equity and resilience benefits to Portlanders. PSEF was created to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, increase climate resilience, and deliver benefits to frontline and priority populations through community-based investments. Public transit, particularly when it is clean, reliable, and accessible, directly advances all those goals. Last fiscal year, TriMet provided approximately 66 million trips. That's about 1.3 million trips every week. Our transit service reduces car trips and harmful emissions, avoiding nearly 55,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions annually. With 5 MAX light rail lines and 46 bus lines operating in the city of Portland today, transit is already one of Portland's most effective and proven climate strategies. That progress, however, is in risk. Reduced passenger fare revenue and increased costs have led to an annual operating budget shortfall at TriMet. This past July, we announced a $300 million structural deficit, and we're preparing to cut more than 10% of our service over the next 18 months to address it. Reduced service means fewer transit trips and more people forced into cars, directly increasing emissions and undermining the city's climate goals. The impacts would fall hardest on Portland's PSEF priority populations. 35% of TriMet's riders are transit dependent. Many are low income, people of color, older adults, people with disabilities, and households that are already burdened by increasing costs. Today, I want to focus on 3 specific TriMet projects that could be funded by PSEF. All deliver improved transit for Portlanders and would help TriMet address its budget shortfall. Each of these projects aligns clearly with program eligibility criteria and are ready to be implemented and deliver measurable climate and equity benefits. First, maintaining bus service to Providence Portland Medical Center on Northeast Gleason Street. Though we are proposing to reduce service on several lines within the city of Portland, there's one bus line that stands out in serving PSEF priority populations where one-time funding could have a significant impact. TriMet's Line 19 serves Providence Portland Medical Center, providing essential access for healthcare workers, patients, and families. We know many of these riders are people who cannot easily shift to driving, and that service reductions here would increase single occupancy vehicle trips and emissions. While there are technically other transit options for riders in the area, we understand that the elimination of service along this section of Northeast Gleason will be a burden for vulnerable members of our community. We are proposing the PSEF be used to temporarily maintain bus service between downtown Portland and Gateway Transit Center in East Portland. This would cost roughly $2.7 million a year, and we could preserve bus service along this segment for 2 years at the cost of $5.5 million. This 2-year service extension would allow us time to attempt to find other solutions to our budget deficit, and the investment would support PSEF priority populations from all over the city and maintain equitable, clean transportation access for our frontline communities. This is a clear example of using climate dollars to protect an existing low-carbon transportation option for people that rely on it every day. Second, max climate resiliency upgrades. Extreme weather is now a regular occurrence here in Portland, and we expect that these events will become more intense and more frequent. Our MAX trains are powered by 100% renewable energy using an overhead catenary wire system. These wires are copper, and a counterweight system holds the lines in tension while they expand and contract in changing temperatures. However, this system was designed for the climate of Portland's past, and the wires sag at extreme temperatures above 100 degrees. This forces us to slow or even stop our MAX trains during the exact times when they could be the most important for Portland riders, helping them to get to potentially life-saving shelter during heat emergencies. By funding the replacement of these aging wires with a new system with features that will be able to withstand up to 130 degrees, PSEF can help prevent delays and keep trains running reliably through heat waves. This is a phased project and could be supported to upgrade the systems across the city at the cost of roughly $2 million a year. Similarly, to achieve climate resiliency for our MAX system, we are also working to address locations where the rail is prone to warping and extreme temperatures. Rail lines are designed to allow trains to operate within a specific temperature range, These rails need to be de-stressed to avoid sun kinks that require us to slow trains or transfer riders to shuttle buses during extreme temperature events. With a $2 million investment, PSEF could pay for PSEF could pay for rail de-stressing at locations in the Expo and Albina, Mississippi areas along the Yellow Line, as well as along the Banfield Blue Line. Additional future investments could support a citywide rail de-stressing program for 25 miles of rail within the city of Portland. These investments in climate resiliency for the overhead catenary system and the rails directly align with PSEF's climate resilience goals. They will help prevent delays and keep trains running reliably through heat waves, ensuring that our zero-emission electric MAX trains remain operational when Portland needs them most. Third, hydrogen fuel infrastructure to advance zero emissions buses. TriMet has secured a federal low or no emissions grant to house hydrogen fuel cell electric buses at our Powell Operations Facility in Southeast Portland for the 82nd Avenue project. However, a $3.2 million local funding gap is needed. There is currently a $3.2 million local funding gap, and we need to find that money to advance this project. If PSEF were to fill that gap, that $3.2 million investment would unlock federal funding, accelerate transportation decarbonization, and support equitable, clean transportation access along the 82nd Avenue corridor. This will help prime the renewable hydrogen market to attract a fully green hydrogen fuel supply to the region in the near future. And with zero tailpipe emissions, these buses will further reduce exposure to diesel pollution for riders, operators, and nearby communities, many of whom are PSEF priority populations. Each of these three investments, maintaining bus service to Providence Portland Medical Center along Northeast Gleason, strengthening MAX resiliency, and advancing hydrogen fuel cell buses, represent a focused, high-impact use of PSEF funds. They are scalable, ready to implement, and firmly within the fund's mandate to reduce emissions and increase resilience and deliver equitable benefits to the city of Portland and its residents. I also want to note that we have been in close coordination with our partners at PBOT about opportunities to collaborate on this funding opportunity. We would welcome further discussion around investments that jointly support our agency's shared goals, such as how PSEF could support our partnership for the Better Bus program. Before closing, I do briefly want to address youth fares. TriMet strongly supports affordable youth access to transit, and I want to be very clear about the significant programs that already exist. Currently, youth pay half the cost of adult fare for a day pass and less than 1/3 the cost of an adult monthly pass. TriMet provides free summer passes for all youth in the TriMet district ages 14 to 19. TriMet provides free school year passes for low-income and transit-dependent students in Park Rose, David Douglas, Sam Barlow, Gresham, Reynolds, and Centennial school districts. And through a cost-sharing agreement, free passes for all high school students enrolled in Portland Public School District. A proposal to replace these programs and create a no-cost pass for all Portland youth would cost an estimated $25 million annually. Such a program to align with PSEF's equity goals and TriMet's needs, that funding must be stable, long-term, and reliably funded. Any limited-term pilot to replace the existing programs would risk undermining the future viability of those programs, and any attempt to scale the program to a specific population will create inequities across the districts. Implementation would also take TriMet 9 to 12 months and require new staffing and administrative capacity that the agency cannot absorb without additional ongoing funding that we do not currently have. These considerations do not diminish the importance of youth mobility, but they underscore the need for stable funding and a thoughtful approach to any change to the existing system. In closing, PSEF has the opportunity to protect and strengthen one of Portland's most powerful climate tools, investing in essential transit service, climate-resilient infrastructure, and zero-emission technology that delivers immediate emissions reductions while centering frontline communities. We look forward to working with you to produce measurable, equitable, and lasting climate benefits to Portlanders. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Since we have a few seconds left, how many people ride the 19 bus on a given day or week, do you know?
I do know that, Counselor. Give me one moment. The weekly ridership for line 19 is 17,500.
Thank you. Next, we have a presentation on the current proposal to shift $15 million into helping to build energy-efficient housing. And I wanted to hear briefly from Sam Barrasso about how the committee reached this decision. I talked to the two co-chairs of the PSEF Advisory Committee, and they weren't available today. And after a brief refresher from Mr. Barrasso. Then we're going to hear from, I hope I'm not mangling the names, Kylie Yang, of the Housing Development Director of SEI, and Pooja Dalal, Housing Developer SEI, about a project that they have in mind that they'd want to use PSEF funding for. And again, we have 9 minutes combined, so hopefully we can work out the timing.
Okay. Thank you, co-chairs Novick and Murillo, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sam Barrasso. I'm the program manager for the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund. I'm going to go ahead and load up the screen here, but I know our colleagues at SCI here are hoping to present their content first and have us follow. If that's okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull your deck up here.
My name is Frida Walker. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer with Self Enhancement, Inc. We are here to request that you adopt the recommendations from the PSEF Committee. And I'd like to pass it on now to Kai Liang, our Housing Development Manager.
Good morning, councils. My name is Kai Liang. I am the Director of Housing Developments for Self Enhancement, Inc. And I'm here to kind of present what is the impact of SP1 in our community and what kind of energy efficiency and also the livability of the future housing for our city. Next slide, please. So we have 2 important projects in pre-development, and actually they're ready to break ground in this year. The first project is a 59 rental homes on MLK and Garfield Avenue, and we have secured 95% of the funding, and we are ready to get to the finish line and then break ground this year. And this is to serve 4% low-income tax credit. The population intend to serve is 60 AMI and below, and our residents will be people of color, single parents, family, children. Those are the target audience that we've been serving for the 45 years of SCI history. Next slide, please. Another project is also ready to break ground is during May of this year as well. We also hope to kind of take advantage of SP1 in order to get to the finish line. And this is even more critical. We have a range of 30% to 60% residents that we aim to serve, and 25% of those are actually permanent supportive housing units, which mean to be serving very low income residents, residents of color, single parents as well, and family with children. And these are larger units than typical affordable housing, which is much needed units in our community. Next slide, please. Now, we have majority of our capital stack already secured, and you can see our sources all lined up here. Total sources secure right now is already at $53.5 million. And we really just need the remaining 3-ish million to kind of the most impactful to the quality of life for our residents. And I can explain you why in the next slide. Now, without this PSEF SP1 eligible resource, we would be eliminating a lot of this critical infrastructure for livability. We will no longer able to secure residents' comfort at high heat or super cold days, which is we're seeing more and more often in our recent years. We also may face very terrible air quality for these residents. And we're talking about 30, 40 years these buildings would be in operation and serving the most needed people in our community. So, and also like energy efficiency aside, like we also try to bring back a lot of our dislocated families who are now working very far from where they work, where they shop, where they live. There's a lot of like excessive amount of carbon. We actually want them to bring back to a centralized home where they can meet their needs and also have a safety of a home they can depend on. And next slide, please. Now, what is the opportunity cost if PSEF were not able to reallocate more resources to SB1? Now, what is the impact to our project, particularly in this case? And actually, this spreads to many other housing projects that also qualified under SP1. Now, we would be forced to redesign, meaning that we'll need to spend additional, likely millions of dollars to take out all the energy efficiency of a current design, and will provide a lot of significant delays to our project. We're talking about perhaps a year or two of delaying able to deliver these projects to a needed community. We also may face residents that will face extreme conditions and not able to cool or heat their homes. And the resident will face extremely high energy cost escalation over the period of 30, 40 years, which is we often not talk about. We talk about the burden of rent, that we haven't really touched on the burden of energy cost. It's rising very, very quickly. So there's another impactful to how family can stay housed in these affordable housing projects. And worst case scenario, we may lose all the funding altogether, meaning that all the $55 million we secured will be in jeopardy because we're just no longer able to deliver these projects according to funding source expectation. So under that, I pass this to Sam.
All right, go ahead and turn the deck over to our deck. Give me a second, folks. Okay.
Just want a point of clarification, Mr. Barrasso. It's not like money from this source has been promised to SEI or any other provider. I asked with some hesitation because many of the other providers didn't happen to reach out to us. I asked SEI to present, to give us an example of how this money could be used. But I just want to clarify, it's not like this money has been promised. SEI is here to talk about an application they make, which could be more likely be approved if the amendment to on the 15 million is approved. Is that right?
Correct. No funding commitments have been made for those additional resources.
Then why was it just presented to us like we might be taking money away?
I'll give a brief, maybe I'll try to do my best to explain. I'll certainly encourage my colleagues, including SCI up here. My understanding here is that there are other funding sources, particularly at the state, Oregon Housing and Community Services. And typically when you go in to put in a request for funding for a housing project, you've got to put all together your entire capital stack. And so sometimes there's projections in there because some of it may be debt financing that you're taking on from lenders, other financing. It is a complex capital stack for affordable housing. And so it is not uncommon for folks to say, and we anticipate getting PSEF resources prior to us making a commitment. So, and building out their projects that way. As you'll see in the presentation here, we'll show Strategic Program 1, which is our energy efficiency program focused on affordable housing, had been essentially it'd been allocating resources and making commitments until it got recently fully allocated. And so I think there's a certain point, and I don't know timeline, there's a question of timelines, but there's a certain point where it would have been reasonable for folks to expect that they may have been able to access those resources. Does that make sense in terms of projecting and saying, this is our anticipated capital stack that we expect to pull together?
So it's sort of an aspirational thing. We hope we might get this.
No, that is not correct.
But you haven't been promised the money from PSEF, right?
We actually, well, these are our grants. So if you meet certain criteria, when PSEF sets a standards, so when building meets a certain expectation or quality of standards from PSEF established, and we aim towards those. Now, you have to be, it's a very lengthy process. For a building design to break the ground, it takes about a year to 2 years. So when we actually have projects that take advantage.
I think we need to cut this out. I mean, to turn it back to Mr. Barrasso, I think it's important to note that, I mean, neither SEI has not been promised this amount of money because it's dependent, among other things, on the amendment to the CIP being made, which hasn't been made yet. Mr. Barrasso, could you just take us briefly through how the committee reached the decision to allocate this $15 million?
Correct. We'll do. And we're looking to see if we have our staff that manages that program in a little bit, see if there are further questions there. So briefly, I'm just going to talk about the amendments themselves and then talk about the existing program, the outcomes, and the projects, as well as our broader timeline. So I think there's just a broader question here around process, and I hear that, and I want to acknowledge that there's great projects that are being discussed here. When we first came to and developed this process with the PSEF committee to have a more structured process for how they engage in developing amendments on an annual basis, so and largely in response to lessons learned, adjustments they need to make, overperformance in one program, underperformance in another, that was the process that they set into motion. And so there are really 4 categories of adjustments that the PSEF committee considered: funding adjustments, goal adjustments and scope refinements, technical changes, and adjustments that were necessary to align with the city budget. This particular change here falls within that first bucket, funding adjustments. I think what I do want to state, and I think it's important, as I know that we haven't focused on the process itself from the outset, but it takes about 10 to 15 months to develop a climate investment plan where we envision that new program. That is what we did from the outset of the climate investment plan. In this annual process, we are making tweaks. When we started the process, we set the stage for the committee that we were, and these were based on discussions with them, that there would be no new programming. The focus would be on existing programs. I do want to state that because I think that just needs to be said, given the implications of developing new programming, the timing, the process that would need to be run in order to appropriately vet ideas. And so here, within the specific recommendations here, it was to increase, the committee's recommendation was to increase funding for our Portland Housing Bureau's clean energy and regulated multifamily affordable housing by $15 million and decreasing $15 million from the targeted EV financing program because it had not launched yet and our projections on what could be reasonably deployed in that program were lower at this point. Now, the existing program and the focus here where we're discussing increasing program had initial allocation or a current allocation of about $63.7 million. And the program was intended to fund the difference between code and high efficiency measures with up to 10% of total hard construction costs being eligible. The eligible projects had to be projects that were funded by the Portland Housing Bureau or Oregon Housing and Community Services. They had to have restricted rentals, so no more than 60% area median income in a period of rent restrictions for a period of at least 30 years. And they had to be awarded funding through a competitive solicitation process. And last, they had to at least be 20 units in order to be eligible for the program. So that's the current program that's since been fully allocated. Now, in that program, getting to this point, it supported a total of about a little bit over 2,100 homes to date that have been completed or under construction. The slides here show you just that breakdown between 60% AMI units, 30% AMI units, and permanent supportive housing. And additionally, there's about 566 additional units that have had funding committed with construction pending that'll ultimately bring us to about a little bit over 2,700 units for that first $63 million in resources that were allocated to the program prior to this proposal. And this just gives a breakdown of some of the projects that have been completed and some of the measures that were part of those projects. Now, with the recommendation that the committee made, it was to increase that, add an additional $15 million, which would support about an additional 586 housing units, efficiency upgrades and 586 housing units, about 1,700 folks supported based on looking at a review of our existing pipeline. And so that's really and so for their perspective, when they entered this review process, we had just completed the first year of the climate investment plan. And
Sam, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay.
We might bring you back up for questions.
Yes. So we completed, I think, getting to the rationale, we completed the first year of the climate investment plan. When we looked at their review and said, out of all of the programs, this was the singular program that had fully allocated all of its resources. Everyone else is in a different stage of implementation, significantly earlier. There's no other programs that had performed like this program. And so it was clear that as we looked across the program and said, in that context, what could we do? That's where the focus was for the committee.
Thank you.
To reiterate, the purpose of this ordinance was technical amendments to the CIP and to review program success and rates of spending. It was not to discuss new programs.
And as far as the technical amendments are concerned, it's my understanding that there's some time urgency on the technical amendments, and therefore, one thing this committee should do today is recommend to the full council adopting all the amendments except this major $15 million shift, and then we could consider that one further. We could do that.
We would certainly say yes. There are certain time sensitivities and negotiations that are wrapped up in some of the other technical amendments. So correct. Should you all decide to hold off on that 50 million, we would ask that you consider those other technical amendments and move those forward.
Thank you. And next up is PBOT with a group of suggestions, and I think Director Williams and Kristen Hull are here to speak.
Thank you, Councilor Novick. Good morning to the members of the committee. My name is Millicent Williams, for the record. I am the Director of the Portland Bureau of Transportation. Thank you for acknowledging the importance of investing. I'm just going to start while Kristen pulls up the presentation. Thank you for acknowledging the importance of investing in transportation decarbonization in climate work. I want to acknowledge that PSEF has already invested in many transportation-focused projects. Our work on transportation decarbonization is far from done and will require more resources, likely local resources. PBOT's strategy to reduce the climate impacts continues to be to reduce the number of miles driven by encouraging biking, walking, and transit, making it easier to choose to drive electric vehicles and to change how goods move. While we continue to work in all these areas, you already heard about ideas for increasing bike mode share. I will now speak to 4 other areas that could be ripe for investment: mitigating streetcar service cuts, investing in zero-emission delivery at the James Beard Public Market, restoring a small portion of the rescinded federal funding for a street project to serve Lower Albina, and providing employee transit passes. One key theme that we've heard from this council and from our community is the importance of maintaining transit service as a key tool for climate mitigation, equity, affordability, and mobility. As you know, the city is the owner and operator of Portland Streetcar and is responsible for capital and asset management. Our partner, TriMet, is responsible for most operations and service funding. With its current financial situation, TriMet is proposing a 10 to 20% cut to TriMet's funding for streetcar services. We cannot backfill this without new resources. Next slide. The scale of reductions proposed by TriMet would require significant changes to streetcar service. We would need to operate only reduced operating hours from 20 to 16 each day. We would also be forced to make other changes like eliminating service over the Tillicum Bridge, reducing service on the AB loop from every 20 minutes to every 30 minutes, or reducing service on the north-south line from every 15 minutes to every 20 minutes. We would also eliminate staff positions. A modest investment from PSEF would preserve a streetcar service for our nearly 10,000 daily riders and ensure the city is in a better position to fund asset management both now and in the future. It would also provide time to work through a long-term funding model. Now, I'd like to share a potential transportation decarbonization investment tied to the James Beard Public Market. The James Beard Public Market is slated to open at the end of the year. When it opens, the question isn't whether deliveries will happen for its 40 vendors, it's how they will happen. The default will be thousands of diesel trucks competing for a handful of curb spaces on the same block, along with congestion, safety conflicts, and localized air pollution. James Beard Public Market, coming to us now, gives us a rare opportunity to do deliveries differently and avoid the problems other cities have faced. With this funding, the James Beard Market would make a simple but powerful operational shift. Rather than each vendor managing deliveries independently, goods would be consolidated in an off-site warehouse and delivered into downtown using small, quiet, zero-emission vehicles. The request for this effort is $2.8 million, which will be entirely focused on the elements required to make this new system work: vehicles, charging, staging space, and logistics coordination. From the city's perspective, the benefits would show up immediately and very visibly to residents and visitors looking to explore downtown and its newest world-class attraction. Another choice would be to restore some of the funding for the transformation of the Lower Broadway in Albina. In 2025, current federal administration canceled funding for the construction phase of this important project that would widen sidewalks, protect bike lanes, improve bus stops, but more importantly, create a street that supports transformational housing development in the central city. Depending on funding, PBOT could build part of this project, advancing the vision and making future phases more achievable. Today, The city offers a 50% subsidy on monthly and annual transit passes as part of a package of incentives for the city. Today, the city offers a 50% subsidy on monthly and annual transit passes as a part of a package of incentives for city employees choosing to walk, bike, take transit, and carpool to the office. For roughly $500,000 annually, we can provide a fully subsidized annual transit pass for all city employees. And I will pause to state that the team that's worked on this with the Bureau of Human Resources, our PBOT team members, and TriMet have identified that roughly 500 employees are currently registered to use the TRIP program. This would provide, and the employees pay 50% of the transit pass. This would provide the opportunity for all employees to have a fully funded transit pass. That would take our user rate, presumably if everyone chose to use their transit pass, from 500 daily users to close to 9,000, depending on whether or not folks were coming into the office for work. Subsidized transit passes respond directly to employee feedback and boost transit ridership. We want to make the choice to come downtown on transit an easy yes by removing cost of transit and take the guesswork out of deciding whether to work from home or go downtown. This concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have Celeste Ruiz, the Multnomah Youth Commission, Ishan Bardwaj of the Multnomah Youth Commission, and Jules Jones. And I think that our own Vivian Satterfield is going to join them.
Good morning, members of the committee. For the record, I'm your Chief Sustainability Officer, Vivian Satterfield. I'm so pleased to hear so many of the discussions and presentations up until now refer to the future generations and to future riders. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to those very folks. And I'm going to invite Erica Molina Rodriguez up here to take my place to help support the presentation around Youth Pass. Thank you.
Good morning, counselors. My name is Celeste Ruiz. I am a student at Portland State University, and I live in District 1.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jules Jones. I'm a student at McDaniel High School, and I live in District 2.
Hello, my name is Ishan Bardwaj. I'm a student at OES, and I live in District 4.
We are a part of the Multnomah Youth Commission, which is the official youth policy body of the city of Portland and Multnomah County. We are youth who live, work, or attend school throughout Multnomah County, and we lift youth voices and policy priorities to our local elected official. Today, we are here to speak to you about one of our top priorities, Youth Pass, which is free year-round public transportation for youth.
Now, our work builds off years of advocacy from the Sisters in Action for Power, an organization made up of girls and women of color who won the first free bus program for youth on free and reduced school lunch at PPS in the early 2000s. In 2008, MYC supported the implementation and development of the PPS Youth Pass, funded by the Oregon Business Energy Tax Credit. However, this expired in 2011, and the legislator was unwilling to renew. So PPS, the City of Portland, and TriMet split the cost 3 ways. With continued advocacy in 2017, the city funded a small expansion to low-income students in David Douglas and Park Rose. While appreciated, the program faced long wait lists and eligibility hurdles, with demand far exceeding available passes. In 2018, the city withdrew all Youth Pass funding, forcing PPS to cover the city's 1/3 share. Later, the state legislature passed HB 2017 and the Statewide Transportation Improvement Fund, also known as STIF, which allocates 1% of funds to student transportation and enabled the creation of TriMet's High School Access Transit Program, distributing around $700,000 in transit grants to Tri-County high schools. The funding was intended to supplement, not replace, yellow bus service, and districts were asked to develop strategies to prioritize students with the greatest need. In practice, however, this means that distribution varies by district and requires students to navigate varying processes, such as finding the right administrator to request passes from. Over time, districts adapted and awareness increased, but the ease of access remains a challenge for students. Importantly, Youth Pass was included in the 2020 Metro Transportation Measure, opening the door for a real cost analysis of Youth Pass. $9 million, if passed, would have funded all youth in the Tri-County area. All of this has been possible due to the work youth leaders have put in over the years. Young people have shown up locally, regionally, and statewide to share their own stories and why Youth Pass matters. Now, we want to share why Youth Pass still matters and opportunities we see for this investment moving forward.
Next slide, please. All right, funding Youth Pass aligns with PSEF's missions in many ways, including the support of priority populations. For example, Park Rose and David Douglas school districts are among the most racially diverse public high schools in the state of Oregon, and youth are a priority population as they have less access to the decision-making and benefits of environmental investments while facing greater vulnerability to climate-related harms. Youth Pass increases job access and economic mobility. With reliable access to transit, youth are able to get jobs, often helping support their families with additional income.
Youth Pass is more than just getting to school. There is more to a high schooler's life than just being a student. Oregon has one of the worst of chronic absenteeism rates in the United States, with a third of public school students missing more than 10% of school days. Research shows subsidized student transit passes increase trips and access to school, improving our absenteeism rates, getting to work, and participating in extracurricular activities. Furthermore, the National Center of Education Statistics links extracurricular participation to stronger academic performance and engagement, yet low-income students participate less often despite widespread availability. With transit access being a key barrier, Youth Pass reduces these access disparities by removing a paywall that favors youth with cars or greater resources. About 30% of Oregonians, including parents and students, do not own a car. According to the World Orb Resources Institute, buses and trains can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by up to 2/3 per kilometer compared to cars. Growing ridership, starting with youth, is essential for transit to deliver real environmental benefits, including bike infrastructure. Alongside a resilient public transit system is an important part of creating a strong multimodal network that can improve for the needs of all Portlanders and reduce environmental strain. Youth Pass helps youth travel without the stress of fines. When a student can't afford a pass, they may ride without paying and face fines from $75 to $250 or exclusion from transit, deepening financial strain for youth and families. In today's national climate, we have also seen some parents reluctant to leave home or give their child rides. While we hope this is not a long-term concern, free youth access to transit can help ease this burden for immigrant and refugee families. Next slide, please.
Since the high school access program began, the number of youth requesting hot passes has increased, but the ease of access has not. To prevent a plateau, all youth need a year-round pass on their student ID, not just those who request passes through school. Youth Pass represents a culture shift that helps youth build lifelong transit habits. Although the 2020 Metro ballot measure did not pass, it opened the door to actual youth ridership data and a new lens to estimate Youth Pass costs. Earlier estimates from other organizations assumed 100% daily youth ridership, which is inaccurate. Cost modeling should instead use actual ridership data, similar to the Universal Pass program for Multnomah County employees. With the high school access program already in place, a universal youth pass can build on existing infrastructure while reducing administrative and overhead costs. PPS saves tax dollars by opting out of costly yellow buses in favor of Youth Pass, as transit service is widely available near PPS schools. Other districts cannot eliminate yellow buses, but Youth Pass is more than just getting to school.
For our final thoughts, every young person deserves access to opportunity, to education, healthcare, jobs, extracurriculars, cultural engagements, and recreation, which are all rights outlined in the City of Portland and Multnomah County's Youth Bill of Rights. When youth begin riding transit at a young age, they're more confident to navigate the system and bring friends and family along with them, destigmatizing public transit and increasing ridership. Youth Pass would allow youth to be more connected and engaged, making communities stronger and safer for everyone. Youth Pass isn't just a program. It builds lifelong riders, advances climate solutions, and removes barriers that hold young people back. Youth Pass is access to our city, our county, and our community, and to the futures that our youth and our city deserve. Youth Pass, our pass to more. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, we have half an hour until we have to move on to the Parks Levy discussion. My guess is that we will not be able to come to a consensus on this $15 million item in the next half hour. And so I'm going to recommend that in about 23 minutes, we have a motion to send all the technical amendments to the council with a recommendation to be adopted, but delete the $15 million change until we have further discussion. Deleting the $15 million amendment would not have any real immediate consequences because right now the money is just sitting there in this EV fund and not being used. So that's what I'm going to recommend. But now I want to move on to questions and discussion. Councilor Canal.
Councilor Novick, I'm first going to say I'm open to that idea. I think we might want to not reallocate it back and just leave it in a sort of separate pool for the 15, but we can talk about that when we get to those last 7 minutes. We had a bit of a miscommunication here and conversation around how other options for transportation funding could get presented. And so I wanted to, if with your permission, ask someone to come up and speak to their proposal.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I did want to give some time to another transportation related project that's asked for money as well, which is Frog Ferry. And I'd like to invite up Friends of Frog Ferry to speak for a few minutes about that. We talked about this at the last meeting and just wanted to make sure that that happened. Sorry for the miscommunication there.
Right.
You can start with.
No problems. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and see you both. For the record, my name is Susan Bladholm, and I'm the founder and president of Frog Ferry.
Hello, my name is Xavier D. Stickler. I'm the vice president of the Downtown Neighborhood Association, and I work closely with Frog Ferry.
We appreciate the opportunity today, and really this whole conversation this morning is about planning for the future. We don't have a prepared presentation for you, but just in summarizing what we're hearing and what Frog Ferry brings to the table, we so need to change how Portlanders are navigating around the region. We absolutely have to have more people taking active transit and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. TriMet, we know we can help induce ridership. We know ferries are considered a gateway mode of transit, and people find ferries are really fun. Oh gosh, I can take another mode of transit to actually board the ferry to take for my commute to work or for school. For cyclists, we really look forward to welcoming you aboard, cyclists. I was a co-founder of Cycle Oregon. I served on the Cycle Oregon board for 15 years and really love that mode of transit. Emergency response. Ferries are a proven best practice, and we need other modes in order to help get our first responders back and forth crossing the river. Central City activation. We can put a boat on the water by 2028. We are now almost 9 years in, and again, ferries aren't just transit. They're actually a fun new attraction for downtown. Portland has a lot of infrastructure. We have docks, and we really appreciate Deputy City Administrator Priya Jayapal and Sonia Shemansky for granting us permission to use 2 city-owned docks. And ferries are very low maintenance. We'd be using the existing infrastructure. You don't have maintenance costs of roads and rail. $22 million puts a boat into operation. We have already delivered $40 million over the past 9 years. That's been in research, the planning, all of the feasibility studies, and a lot of community outreach. And that money, that $22 million, would go to upgrading your 2 docks, actually design engineering a vessel that would be an electric vessel. That's also the charging infrastructure for it and the ticketing and the marketing program behind it. needed. Our vision is up to 7 vessels and 9 stops. The first boat, just a pilot project, would be displacing 225 passengers a year or 600 cars per day. That would escalate to a total operation of 7 vessels is what we have in our pro forma, and displacing 1 million passengers per day. To date, City Council has awarded us $90,000, no funding in the past 7 years, and we just look forward to working with the city. We feel like we've really de-risked this project. You want to speak very briefly to North Portland, too?
Absolutely. North Portland is an underserved community, and this would create transit commute time from the North Portland Peninsula to the South Waterfront and OHSU and PSU, cut that transit time in half. So we think this is a really transformational project that is critical to the revitalization of downtown.
3,200 metric tons displaced by 1 vessel.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Colleagues, let's move on to questions and discussion.
Am I up?
Yes, Councilor Avalos.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Apologies that I am not feeling well and I am virtual, but I have been here the whole time. Before I get into the substance, I want to be clear about where I stand procedurally based on what I heard you say, Chair Novick. I do not support sending this package forward while carving out the 15 million housing allocation from transportation. I believe we should send the full recommendation forward as a complete package, because to me, pulling out this piece doesn't resolve the disagreement. It just delays a decision and delays this investment in housing at a moment when we know when housing projects are shovel ready and construction costs are rising. So I think delaying has real consequences. I think if there's any further discussion that we need to have, we can do that at full council. But for those reasons, I think the responsible path is to move the entire package forward together rather than letting climate dollars sit idle. With that said, I want to ground us first in the emissions data because precision really matters in this because I keep hearing this talking point. So statewide, transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, about 35% of the total emissions. That matters. But what often gets lost is that buildings, residential and commercial, are the second largest source, about another 30 to 35% of emissions. And this is driven largely by electricity use and fossil fuels for heating and cooling. So when we're talking about climate investments, it's not a debate between climate and housing. Housing is climate policy, and buildings are one of our biggest levers right now for emissions reduction, and they sit right alongside transportation in terms of impact, in my opinion. So where I'm struggling with the argument that we need to keep these particular dollars in transportation is that it assumes all transportation investments are equally ready and equally able to move the needle right now. And that's just not the reality we're facing, especially after what I've heard from the presentations. What we're actually talking about here are PSEF dollars that are currently sitting unspent, largely because EV infrastructure and related systems are not yet ready to deploy at scale. And that doesn't mean that it's a failure, but it does reflect where the technology and infrastructure are today. But I also want to be clear about what it's not, because this is not a permanent deprioritization of transportation. As staff have explained, the city has already invested substantial PSEF dollars in transportation, and that work will continue. So this is about timing and readiness and impact, not about abandoning transportation as a climate strategy. So the real choice in front of us is not transportation versus housing. It's whether we allow climate dollars to sit idle or whether we deploy them where they can do real work right now. From my perspective, and from the perspective of the PSEF committee and staff who are closest to implementation, housing is where those dollars can be put to work immediately, because those housing projects are shovel ready, they exist today, and they're waiting on capital. When PSEF can come in at roughly 20% of the capital stack, that's often the difference between a project stalling and a project breaking ground. And that is not theoretical. That's just how housing financing actually works. So these investments also primarily benefit low-income renters who face the highest energy burdens and the greatest climate risk. This is where climate action and equity and housing instability intersect most clearly. So when those projects move forward, we get deeply energy efficient buildings, long-term emissions reductions from the second largest emitting sector, lower utility costs for renters, displacement prevention, and progress on the city's #1 crisis, which is housing. I also want to name the real downside of waiting. Every delay in housing construction increases costs. We hear this a lot in our housing committee. Labor costs rise, material costs rise, financing costs rise. So waiting does not preserve opportunity, it actually erodes it. And waiting to use available climate dollars now helps prevent, or using them now helps prevent projects from becoming more expensive or falling apart altogether. I also don't believe it's appropriate to use PSEF dollars to try to patch structural gaps in our regional transportation system. TriMet's own materials make clear that they are facing hundreds of millions of dollars in long-term funding challenges, and I respect the urgency of that situation, but small infusions of climate dollars are not going to materially change service outcomes, especially for East Portlanders. Those are structural funding questions that deserve their own solutions, state, regional, and federal, and I don't think that it serves transit riders or the integrity of our climate fund to blur those lines. I know this is long, but I've got a couple more things to say. It's important to recognize that many of our transportation proposals that we're seeing, climate resilience upgrades, phased infrastructure replacements, long-term transitions, these are multi-year systems level investments, and they matter, but they're not shovel ready in the same way that housing projects are, and they are not going to deploy emissions reductions on that same timeline. So that to me really matters when we're stewards of a fund like PSEF, which lastly brings me to process. This package didn't come out of nowhere. It was recommended by the PSEF committee based on staff analysis of readiness, impact, and alignment with voter intent. And I think it's important that we respect the governance structure we created and trust the expertise we asked for. We're about to approach the next climate investment plan process, which is exactly the right venue, in my opinion, to step back and evaluate longer-term proportionality across sectors. That plan is designed for those conversations. But what's before us today is not a philosophical shift in our climate priorities. It's a technical, time-bound adjustment to ensure that climate dollars are actually working, not sitting, and are being used where they can make the most immediate difference. So for all those reasons, I support sending the entire package forward, including the 15 million housing allocation, rather than pulling it out and delaying an investment we know that we can move on now. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Councilor. I just want to quickly respond to that. Right now, we're spending 47% of PSEF funds on the second largest source of carbon emissions, buildings, and 24% on the largest, transportation. So the proposal that came from PSEF would increase that imbalance. And second, I think that there are some very immediate uses for the money in transportation. And after hearing from other colleagues, I might call up John Seraph and TriMet to ask how soon they are planning to shut down Line 19, for example. Councilor Murillo.
Thank you all. Sorry, apologies. I'm also sick, so it sounds like everyone is getting the plague at City Hall. And I think I'm sad to not be there in person because frankly, I appreciate all of the presentations, and it's not often that you have so many good choices before you that the decision feels hard because there are so many good things that we could fund with such limited dollars. So I do feel very compelled by a lot of what Councillor Avalos said. And frankly, there are a lot of statistics also being thrown around about carbon emissions with regards to driving versus housing, but I've actually heard a lot of conflicting things. So with regards to the importance of both, and I think both are equally important for different reasons. I am curious, so if we do we have a deadline to move the entire package forward today apart from the 15 million? Because I also feel like last time we didn't get these presentations, and this is a pretty heavy thing to weigh, and over half of our committee is extremely ill and having to work from home today.
Yeah, my understanding from BPS staff is that at a minimum, what it would like us to do is to forward the amendments that have been proposed to full council, with the exception of the amendment that moves the $15 million. And Claire has been working to come up with what precisely that language of that amendment would be. So BPS has asked us to today move the technical amendments, but we can do that and just not do the amendment that moves the $15 million.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I also have some clarifying questions about the housing projects. I understand what Sam Barrasso stated as far as like these dollars aren't officially allocated to them, but also you do projections based on ability to get those dollars so that you can start building as quickly as possible. And we do need that, and we do need our buildings to be climate resilient. If some of these dollars don't go towards that, can Sam or somebody just outline like exactly what those impacts would be? Like, will these things not be built? It sounds like maybe there just will be less energy efficiency, or does it mean like the building will be completely unusable during high heat or extreme cold? And I'm sorry if I'm like not articulating myself very well today.
Sam, can you give a quick answer to that question?
Co-chairs Novick and Murillo, for the record, Sam Brasso. Just briefly, I mean, I think, and we've got colleagues here from SCI that can certainly speak to that more articulately than I can. What I will say, from my understanding, is that these projects are designed both from an architecture perspective and otherwise for as they're designed. So if some of the projects that anticipated getting PSEF funding and design and develop their projects based on that do not get those funds, they are understanding based on OHCSs, then they go back to those projects typically go back to the line. There's a certain expiration date by which they have to get their capital stacks together to move their projects forward. If they don't get their funding together by those time periods, then they lose that funding commitment from OHCS and go to the back of the line and hence restart their process of assembling their capital stack.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Barrasso.
That's very helpful. Thank you. I think, obviously, I think I'm the only member of council that does not have a license, and so I can't drive. And so the bike and bus infrastructure items are uniquely important to me on a personal level, and also I believe in those projects very strongly. I do have concerns about the city of Portland using our dollars and PSEF dollars to backfill TriMet because the state legislature failed to secure a transportation package, because we simply don't have the dollars to do that. And so I do worry about the precedent that sets, even though I take the bus 19, I need the bus 19, and I would love to see it never be cut ever, but I have concerns about that. I also have some concerns about the bike package that has been brought forward after sitting with it for a few weeks, because I'm not sure that advertising or more political discussion about biking is the barrier. I don't think that people aren't biking in the city because of a lack of advertising. I think that we're not biking in the city because it doesn't feel safe, or because we don't have the physical hardened infrastructure to keep people who are biking safe. And I struggle to see how the ride-along things are different than like Pedalpalooza or other things that already exist for free that people can join, that are just being organized by community to teach people how to bike ride in an easier way. So because of those reasons, I am leaning towards maintaining the original CIP package. And I appreciate Councilor Avalos's suggestion also that we can revisit these things as a whole if needed during a broader discussion. But if people have reactions to that or want to respond to those things, I welcome that as well.
Councilor Canal.
Thank you. I think I agree with much of what's been said, and there's probably not quite enough time to really get into a lot of the questions I had. I want to just quickly say I agree with 99% of the idea that there are no bad projects here. The one exception is exactly what Councilor Murillo just said. I strongly oppose the use of money for social media ad campaigns at PBOT to encourage people to bike through this process. I do think that the activations are a good idea. I do disagree there, so I'm very glad to see that Mr. Geller's proposal has evolved. I've given some feedback on that in the past, and I'm grateful to see that some expansion has gone there. I'm going to not take a stand at this moment on the question of where the 15 million should go, because I think there's a lot of things in here that I have very limited information about. I have ideas for if it's either, and I wanted to flag that. If it remains on the housing side, I am very supportive of both of the two projects that SEI brought up, in particular the Mississippi development, because we need more 30% AMI related projects. I am a little bit concerned, and my concern is for PSEF, not SEI or any of the other developers on this, which is that I'm unclear as to why something we might not do is being presented to us as something we might take away. And that really bothers me that that's how it's being portrayed to us, because it limits council's political ability and authority to decide when people are pretending it's presenting to potential recipients of funding that it's a defunding if council makes a decision we're empowered to do for money that hasn't been allocated yet. So I would ask our partners in the administration to do whatever it takes to stop conveying that decisions are a done deal before council approval. We used to be a rubber stamp before January 1st, 2025 on a lot of these decisions. We're not anymore. Switching gears to the transportation side. First off, you know you've made it in life when you get a bike pin from former Congressman Blumenauer. And if the rules allow it, I'm happy to accept it. Broadly supportive of expanding mode share for bikes. I think there's a lot of different things on the infrastructure side Councilor Murillo mentioned. So I'll leave that for a future conversation. On the TriMet side, I do want to know the data around the Green Line reduction and whether or not that being kept would help mitigate some of the concerns around Line 19. I also am sad to see that Line 17 was not discussed here today. That's in Concordia. There's actually a community event about it. It goes through Alameda and a few other neighborhoods as well. Community event tonight about trying to save the service to Line 17. Strongly supportive of the investments 2A and 2B, but I'm trying to understand why we should continue taking on responsibilities from the state as well. I have very, very little faith in the state legislature to come through for Portlanders on transportation issues, even though we have many great local legislators. So I think that if we started to put money into this, it would probably be forever. And I'm very concerned about that. The state should not simply refrain from cutting it. We should be funding to the point of making ridership fairless. The one exception to that is I do support the use of funding on Youth Pass. I don't want to go crazy over time. I have ideas and thoughts on the PBOT things, but I'd love more information on the other, specifically streetcar in Alameda. And then the last thing I'll mention is I obviously asked for Frog Ferry to be here. Your commute doesn't have to suck in Portland. We can actually work on creating a space where you get to enjoy our river and enjoy the way that you get around in the city. And I think I'd like to understand that more. And I'll save the rest for later.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Chair Novick, and I'm a part of the group that's fighting the crud, and I'm grateful that we can tune in this manner. Well, this seems to be the theme of the week here at the council. We have some money, and we have to figure out how to quickly respond and spend it. So different lane, but similar vibes. So I just wanted to put that out. It's been quite a week up here. And I want to thank you, Chair Novick, for taking a breath here, for allowing us to have some dialogue about the fact that this was a cut in, or there was an implementation of the investments in transportation, yet that's still our biggest need. So why don't we take a moment to see where, in fact, those investments could go in transportation that could be, as the term is, said, shovel ready, so that we can start to see some gains. So I appreciate that logic. And so I want to give some feedback on big picture themes. I also appreciate, Chair Novick, that your suggestion of doing the technical amendments, and whether we have another discussion in this committee before it goes to the full committee. I wanted to give some advice or some thinking that I have on how that could be more helpful. I'm very supportive of the infrastructure investments at TriMet. I can't tell you how many times when we're in a heat wave and you hear that the max lines are down, how odd that is. And I would think, why didn't they know that the temps could get over 100 in Portland? That even happened back in the 70s now and then. So anyway, I think that looking at that investment, if in fact it could be performed in a short period of time, and that we can get that's a quick value added. And so that's exactly, I think, what people had in mind when they voted yes on PSEF. So I'm supportive of infrastructure investments. I'm not going to choose between housing and transportation today because I'm just taking all this in. I actually think there might be a little bit of both, kind of like we're experiencing with the other conversation we had yesterday. These are all good ideas. There's not one idea here that isn't good. It's just, what are we going to do with the commitment to this 15 million that was in transportation? And are we going to keep it in that lane, or are we going to do some splitting, because there is some ready investments also for climate ready infrastructure investments in housing, obviously a big priority, hence the meeting yesterday. So I'm going to keep chewing on this. I'm glad that you said we don't have to make those decisions today. We're not ready to make those decisions today, but at least we had amazing presentations. They were all good, all inspiring, and you're left wanting to fund them all, of course. I didn't really enjoy the comment earlier, Councillor Canal. I never experienced a rubber stamp moment in my time on the council. In fact, I actually found that we had more dialogue prior to items coming to the council. So maybe it appeared like it was a rubber stamp, but man, there was a lot more time for dialogue before decisions were made. And so I think in this council, we have to take some more time when we're working with our constituents, both internally and externally, so that we can really make these tough decisions. That's why we get paid the big bucks. Anyway, that was really rushed, like all of this seems to be at the moment. But I'm really grateful that we brought some innovative transportation infrastructure. I'm less supportive of doing operational funds, and I have to make this comment on the Youth Pass. We need an equity lens on that. I said this even when I was more connected with PPS. The poverty rates with the east of Portland school districts is much higher, and why they get such limited amounts compared to PPS has always bothered me. Had to put that out there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. I want to do a time check. Parks is supposed to come up in 4 minutes, and we'd need to figure out exactly what motion to move. Councilor Canal, do you have a quick comment before we move on to figuring out something to vote on?
Yeah, I appreciate the point from Councilor Ryan. I guess I should have said the expectation was that it would be a rubber stamp before. I appreciate the clarification and the bringing of your experience on that, Council. And sorry for the delay there in respond on that. Thanks.
Okay. I may be misreading things, but it sounds to me that there probably are 3 of us here who did not want to make a final decision today on the 15 million. Claire has been working with the city attorney on coming up with an amendment that would amend the Exhibit A to the proposed amendments from PSEF in a way to reflect that we would not be today moving the 15 million. Claire, can you read the amendment that we came up with?
Councilor Novick, and the guidance from the city attorney, I mean, I think the amendment is posted. I should let the public know the amendment has been posted by the clerk to this item on the website. So it would amend Exhibit A of the ordinance to restore the original funding allocations to Strategic Programs 1 and Strategic Program 13. So I'll just read it. Amend Exhibit A on page 3, restore original funding allocation to Strategic Program 1, Clean Energy and Regulated Multifamily Affordable Housing. The 5-year funding allocation would be $63,700,000 instead of $78,700,000. On page 4, it's the language that reads, over 5 years, PSEF will invest up to $63.7 million, that's the change from $78.7 million, in clean energy upgrades in new or redeveloped regulated multifamily affordable housing. And then on page 5, restore original funding allocation to Strategic Program 13, targeted electric vehicle financing tools. The 5-year funding allocation would be restored as originally was to $35 million. And the notes on both of these is that, and again, this would be one amendment, but that the recommendation is this requires further staff analysis because there are other red line changes in Exhibit A that relate to those changes in allocations, specifically in the goal measures section, investment strategy, and probably some of the program description. And so that would require, and this means staff analysis probably from the Bureau, from PSEF.
Thank you, Claire. Can I have a motion to approve that amendment? The effect of that would mean that we're postponing the decision of the 15 million in effect. You'll be left with the...
Our second.
Yep. We need a motion first.
So moved.
I thought you made it, Chair, sorry.
No, I kind of think the chair isn't supposed to make the first motion. I would, but can we... Councilor Ryan, can we consider you to have made a motion?
I'm fine being either the so moved or the second.
Okay.
I think give it Toddles. Yeah.
Second.
No, I don't.
Oh, that wasn't your voice? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't think Councilor.
So moved.
Counselor Morello here. I can second this.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Councilor
information on that. If we move this money back, there's no risk that it's going to get used in some other way before we get a chance to talk about it.
No, there's absolutely no risk of that. In fact, the entire reason this is before us is that money was not being used, and there's no prospect of it immediately being used.
Copy that. Thank you.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. Diego, could you call the roll?
We had a motion by Councilor Ryan, second from Councilor Murillo. Avalos?
Please restate what this vote is.
This vote would be to basically to say that we're not going to now adopt the recommendation to move the 15 million. So I'm assuming your vote is no, Councilor Avalos.
My vote is no.
Canal?
Yes.
Ryan?
Aye.
Murillo?
Aye.
Novick?
Aye.
With 4 ayes and 1 nay, the amendment to Exhibit A is approved.
And I think the next thing to do is to ask for a motion to approve, to send to council with a recommendation for adoption, the amendment package as just amended.
It's the ordinance as amended.
The ordinance as amended, yeah. So can I have a motion to that effect?
Point of information. Does that mean that the committee will be discussing this again on this? Or
that's my intent, yeah. Okay. And my intent would be to inform the full council what we've been doing. Okay. And say we're moving that without this amendment, we expect further discussion of that 15 million.
Councilor Novick, sorry. If you are folding in the amendment to have further discussion, but do not want to move it to full council, then you've... Wait,
but I thought our goal here today was to move the package to full council, which simply doesn't include that $15 million amendment that PSEF proposed.
Right, that's correct. I heard Councilor Canal asking if the committee would specifically be discussing again. So
I do expect the committee to subsequently take up the discussion of that 15 million, which right now is going to be sitting in the EV pool. But meanwhile, we'd want the full council to approve all the technical amendments.
Okay, thank you.
So can I have a motion to move the package as we just amended it to full council with the recommendation to be adopted?
Given that clarification, so moved.
Second.
Diego, could you call the roll?
Avalos?
No.
Canal?
Yes.
Ryan?
Thank you so much for that clarification. Aye.
Murillo?
Aye.
Novick?
Aye.
With 4 ayes and 1 nay, the motion carries to send to full council the ordinance as amended with a recommendation to pass.
Thank you so much. And we're only 2 minutes late. Diego, could you please read the next item?
Item 3, accept the 2024-2025 Parks Levy and Parks Levy Oversight Committee Annual Report.
Director Sonia Szymanski just went to the restroom. She'll be here shortly. Do you have your name? No, you're good.
Please proceed.
I'm sorry. Good morning. Thank you for hosting us. I'm Sonia Szymanski, Interim Director for Portland Parks and Recreation. I'm happy to be joined by Public Works DCA Donna Paul in the audience and available for questions, as well as Levy Coordinator Claire Flynn, and virtually by Parks Levy Oversight Committee member Jacob Van Ballen, who joined the committee this past July. The item before you today proposes that you accept the 2024-25 Parks Levy Annual Report from the Parks Bureau and the 2024-25 Parks Levy Oversight Committee Annual Report from the committee and refer the item to full council. The reports include key actions, financial information, and performance measures from July 24 through June 25. We are now in year 5 of the 2020 levy, and we look forward to implementing the 2025 levy beginning July 1, knowing our job is to continue showing value to Portlanders. In year 4 of the Parks levy, we saw continued or increased community impact across the levy commitments and are particularly excited about increases in volunteerism, attendance, and proactive care of park trees. And we're pleased that an independent performance audit published in December 2024 confirmed that levy funds were used for their intended purposes and that the Bureau has good tracking and financial systems. Many thanks to the Parks Levy Oversight Committee for their work this past year and for their insight and input as we look toward the next Parks Levy Oversight Committee. And of course, the impact you'll hear about today is all thanks to staff and volunteers in Portland Parks and Recreation, hundreds of whom show up each day to tend to our system with expertise and care so that it remains a place of comfort, connection, and safety for Portlanders. The 2020 Parks Levy was approved by Portland voters in November 2020 for a term of 5 years. It's a property tax of 80 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. We are currently in year 5, fiscal year 26 being the final year, and we are pleased to be rolling into year 1 of the 2025 levy beginning in July. Today, we start with a short presentation from Jacob Van Ballen, a member of the Oversight Committee, who will tell you about their annual report.
Thank you, Director Szymanski, and thank you, councilors, for hosting us. My name's Jacob Van Ballen. I'm a member of the Parks Levy Oversight Committee, and I'm here today to share our committee's 4th annual report, which is a response to fiscal year 24-25 Parks Levy annual report, and then Portland Parks and Recreation actions in that fiscal year. We are a committee of 5 community members. We meet quarterly. Our role is reviewing information and verifying compliance with and progress towards the purposes of the Parks Levy, advising on transparency and communication strategies, and then to counsel on the annual report. My peers on the committee right now are Josh Norton, Mayor Rubel, Silas Sanderson, and Tim Williams. Our meetings are open to the public, and we accept public comment. Our report is structured in 3 main sections. The first is adherence to ballot language. We found that the Bureau adhered to ballot language and made progress on all 15 ballot commitments. During year 4, the Independence Performance Audit showed that levy funds were used in compliance with voter-approved commitments. We commend PP&R for a clean Parks Levy audit with no findings, no recommendations, and we celebrate that validation of PP&R's framework and their implementation. Year 4 saw groundwork that PP&R laid in the initial years of the Parks Levy really paying off with increased performance. We feel it's important to acknowledge the impact of the 2020 Parks Levy. Basic services like restroom cleaning, trash pickup, community centers staying open would not be happening without the Parks Levy. So we encourage PP&R to continue to share how those levy funds are essential to a healthy Portland. We're also excited to see the new key performance indicator dashboard for the new 2025 Parks Levy. We believe that would be really helpful in communicating performance and accountability. We also found and find that PP&R is fiscally accountable in tracking Parks Levy dollars in a transparent, auditable, and effective way. PP&R can track Parks Levy expenditures at a variety of levels, and this was validated in that independent audit. The 2020 levy was approved by voters to be additive funds for Parks and Recreation services. General fund cuts mean that Parks Levy is relied on more heavily to support operations and undermines the ability to fulfill commitments made to voters. So we really want to caution reliance on the Parks Levy and an erosion of the impacts of the Parks Levy through those general fund cuts, by over-reliance on the Parks Levy. We're also aware of the enormous unfunded need for capital maintenance to maintain parks and recreation facilities, trails, and parklands. We support continued emphasis on identifying additional funding to address the condition of those existing assets. And then finally, we encourage Portland Parks and Recreation to glean those lessons learned from those early years of the Parks Levy ramp-up period, so those 2020, 2021, to better understand efficiency and improve efficiency where possible. And then for transparency, Parks has been responsive to the feedback of our group of the Oversight Committee. Particularly, we recommended additional new and visual communication methods to show Parks Levy performance. And in year 4, those performance measure graphs are a huge element of the annual report, as you'll see, and they really help to communicate Parks Levy's impact over time. We were also really encouraged to see the completion of the Community Needs Survey, the 2024 Community Needs Survey, and that led us to suggest adjustments to levy-supported programs based on those survey results. A really big example is not being aware of program offerings is cited as a major barrier to participating in parks offerings. So we encourage PP&R to broaden those communication efforts so that Portlanders are kind of aware of the community benefits that that PP&R has to offer. Overall, we were pleased with year 4 of the 2020 Parks Levy, and we emphasized that the critical nature of this funding for a functioning parks and recreation system that supports the well-being of Portlanders. I want to thank City Council for continued support of the Parks Levy, and I really look forward to future years of success. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Claire Flynn, who will present an overview of the Bureau's Parks Levy Annual Report.
Thank you, Jacob. Good morning. My name is Claire Flynn, and I'm the Levy Coordinator for Portland Parks and Recreation, and I am presenting the Bureau's Levy Report for this previous fiscal year 24-25, which was year 4 of the Parks Levy. The report shares key actions, financials, and performance measures for the 15 commitments included in the Parks Levy ballot title and explanatory statement. Each of the commitments is nested into one of 3 larger service categories: recreation for all, protect and grow nature, and community partnerships. Performance measures are included to show impact of the Parks Levy year over year. And as an operating levy, the Parks Levy is spent through a leveraged funding model in which general fund is blended with Parks Levy funding, so Parks Levy dollars support a portion of all eligible operational expenses. The full report, specifically Appendix D, breaks out the spending by the amount of levy spending as well as the total spending to deliver services, so every dollar is accounted for. Throughout the report, we also include interviews and stories of staff, partners, and participants to show anecdotal impact of the Parks Levy. Recreation for all means increasing access to recreation by reducing costs as a barrier, ensuring service continuity, and centering programming and outreach on underserved communities. Thanks to the Parks Levy, we were successful in preventing cuts and closures to recreation programs and facilities. Community centers were able to remain open, and we were able to provide programming. Jean and Hattie Gray spoke to their positive family experience attending programs and drop-in activities at Southwest Community Center. PP&R safely provided swim lessons, camps and classes, fitness in the park, pop-up concerts, free lunch and play, and other popular programming. In year 4, we served students through the Schools to Pools initiative, providing free swim instruction, and also increased participation in free lunch and play and outdoor fitness classes. Teen Force staff Xavier and Deer and participant Mike spoke to impact and importance of team programming and spaces that bring community and teens together. In year 4, we saw a continued increase of people using PP&R's registration system, and total estimated attendance increased across a variety of programs. 2 main elements of removing financial barriers to programming are the access discount and free programming. Nearly 19,000 Portlanders, which is 26% of all participants, received $4.7 million in financial assistance through the access discount program. PP&R collects demographic and income data of access discount users to understand who is accessing financial assistance. 75% of users self-identified as living at or below the current Oregon poverty line. Our next section is Protect and Grow Nature, which means making parks and facilities cleaner, better maintained, safer, and more welcoming for all. These 2 commitments are focused on natural features and natural areas and the benefits that they provide. Trail maintenance provides valuable care for natural features and areas, and volunteers help to care for our natural areas through the Natural Area Stewardship Program. Ed Kearns with the Lentz Springwater Restoration Project, funded through the Community Partnership Program, shared the impact of PP&R funding and improving habitat while connecting youth to nature. In year 4, over 6,500 youth participated in environmental education programming. These programs are critical to connecting youth to nature and fostering a sense of stewardship in Portland communities. PP&R's community gardens programs give Portlanders like Joseph the opportunity to steward land and connect with nature and community. PP&R keeps over 150 developed parks functional and welcoming to Portlanders by cleaning landscaping, performing maintenance, and more. Terrence, a North Zone park technician, shared his daily activities and the impact he feels when caring for Portland's parks. Both hours spent on restroom cleaning, care, and maintenance, as well as total staff maintenance hours, continued to increase in year 4. The Park Tree Maintenance Program, which was made possible with the Parks Levy, performed proactive maintenance on over 2,600 park trees. PP&R is also leveraging resources from the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund to plant new trees, which has increased plantings. PP&R collected natural area condition, moved forward with a new volunteer management system to improve volunteer engagement and tracking, and is also in the process of replacing the old work order system. These efforts will improve internal efficiencies and cost effectiveness. Our final large category is community partnerships. Community partnerships are critical to centering the community in decision-making and oversight and to deliver an equitable parks and recreation system for all Portlanders. The Parks Levy Oversight Committee, as you heard, continued to review and advise on fiscal accountability, adherence to ballot language, and transparency. Also in year 4, we had the independent performance audit that found that Parks Levy funds were properly used to meet ballot commitments and that PP&R had the financial and management systems in place for clean stewardship of Parks Levy funds. PP&R's Project Connect initiative increased engagement and outreach to Portlanders to connect more people to recreation offerings. And the Community Partnership Program and Teen Collaborative Initiative reached over 7,000 youth and provided space to organizations like Kids in Tennis and Girls on the Run, who shared their experience and the importance of accessing PP&R spaces to provide their programming. We saw increased grants to partner organizations, as well as increased volunteer hours, which help maintain parks, provide programming, and foster strong community partnerships. PP&R successfully delivered parks and recreation services to a wide variety of users and implemented initiatives such as lifelong recreation, Teen Force, English as a learning language, and adaptive and inclusive recreation. This is a high-level summary of Parks Levy funding spent in fiscal year 24-25. The sum of total expense is the total expenditures minus any program revenue of services that receive Parks Levy funding. And the Parks Levy portion of expense is the amount of that total expense value that was funded by the Parks Levy using the leveraged funding model. Per City Council direction and the ballot referral, the Parks Levy was also required to reimburse the Portland Children's Levy for compression impact. So with that, the total amount of Parks Levy funding spent in fiscal year 24-25 was $63.77 million. This Parks Levy spending was more than the almost $48 million that came in from the Parks Levy revenues in year 4. So $12.76 million from the existing Parks Levy balance, which was generated from underspending in years 1 through 3, was used in year 4. In year 4, Parks Levy funded 36% of PP&R's overall operational spending. I also want to call out that at the end of the report, Appendix D has a detailed list of service area and work group expenses and the detailed amount of Parks Levy funding supporting each combination. We also publish a line item expense details document that further breaks down the Parks Levy spending by category, personnel, external materials and services, and internal materials and services. So these detailed breakdowns really report where Parks Levy dollars are spent. We're excited about the progress made in year 4 of the Parks Levy and are grateful for the support of the Parks Levy Oversight Committee and City Council. That concludes our presentation. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and discussion.
Colleagues, any questions? Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Chair Novick. Great report. I always have to remember this is a look back, a rearview mirror, and so sometimes I have trouble with that. I wanted to just highlight one item that is looking back, but also looking forward for improvement. I found the more I would ask questions about the access pass, I would become more confused. I think it's important to not have subsidies for all, but I do think it's important to have access for all. I think that those that are truly low income need to be targeted for attaining this access pass. And the way it was always explained to me over and over and over again was that one size did fit all. And my experience in life is that those who probably have means to pay the fees are going to also be the most equipped to attain such a benefit. And so I've always been puzzled by it. And I hope that before we go forward and we start drawing from the new levy that was passed, that we make an adjustment to that system. If we don't see more earned revenue coming into parks, we will be in a very uncomfortable situation 5 years from now in our levy conversations. And so we have to do everything we can to increase earned revenue and also to increase partnership revenue through grants and such. So has there any been conversation about the access pass and with some relatively critical lens so that we can make some improvements to that going forward?
Thank you, Counselor. This is Sonia. The answer is yes, prompted in part by hearing from you and your colleagues' interest in reviewing that program, revisiting, refining to make sure that we're optimizing between revenue and access so that we're providing, as you say, access for all, but with an eye toward revenue. I saw our Oversight Committee partner, Jacob, nodding. I wonder if you want to contribute to that. We've talked about it with this Oversight Committee, and I think with the Parks Board. We haven't begun work in earnest on that, but it's on the list, and I anticipate we'll start that soon.
Thank you so much, Director Szymanski. I didn't see you because now there you are. The screen is now on you. I appreciate that. And I feel listened to. Obviously, you've heard me say this a few times going back 3 years, so I appreciate it. Hi, Jacob.
Yes, we've discussed that on the Oversight Committee, I think at a few different levels, both the conceptual level where we're a little curious about who's getting the access, and then also just on the descriptive statistics level, right? Getting more access to what's the median use, who's the median user, what programs is that going to? We on the Oversight Committee see that these costs are accounted for in expenses for other programs, but getting more dialed into actually what programs are being used for the access program is something that our committee was making recommendations on going forward, so we can get a little more insight there.
Now, I appreciate that. What we do know is there are levy dollars subsidizing people who don't meet the low income thresholds. We know that because it's on an honor system. And whether it's a few $100,000 or a few million, it's levy dollars that could be spent otherwise for accountability and fidelity to what voters thought they voted on. I just think we should really make this a program for low income households. Thank you.
Councilor Canal.
Thank you, Co-Chair Novick. I have one quick question and just two comments. You spoke to why the revenues are exceeded by expenses in year 4 because of the underspending in years 1 through 3. We should expect that in year 5 as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to flag that, and I think you did a good job explaining why that happened, and I just wanted to be sure that was on the record. Broadly, I appreciate the Oversight Committee's work. I share the belief that we need to do a better job of communicating what specifically the levy is supporting and the tangible benefits to Portlanders as we go forward. I think that'll be a little easier in the new levy when we have some of the more minor maintenance projects, the capital side as well. Full disclosure, I was on the Parks Board in 2024. Some of the conversations in December around the access discount and that sort of thing were things I was a part of. I do want to just note, I think that and this doesn't apply to everything that program covers, but the administration costs, all those sorts of things could be made better if we just waived fees for drop-in altogether. And I think we should have universal access. I have talked about playing dodgeball in municipal community centers a lot in Seattle. We don't do that here. Part of the reason for that is the costs associated with everything here are much higher. And so trying to get to a place where just there's drop-in. I understand classes are going to have costs. I agree with Councilor Ryan about partnerships and grants and things like that, needing to find external revenue. I think the $6 or $5 type of costs are not necessarily helping to the degree with the budget that we could. And so I just wanted to flag that and give you a chance to talk about it. I know Director Szymanski, you've had thoughts on it in the past if you want to. Sure.
Well, I think it's an astute and wise suggestion to look into. Instinctively, it makes a lot of sense if you're not getting the return for the time you're spending to administer it, and there's a potential or actual barrier to access. It should be frictionless coming into our community centers and using and enjoying them. In my mental list of things to look at in this discount program conversation, that's near the top.
Thanks. And I know that right now it is a little bit less, it is more frictionless than it might otherwise be right now. There's already a lesser level of friction, but that has led to some of the problems that I think, or at least perceived problems that Councilor Ryan has talked about in terms of an honor system not necessarily guaranteeing that that the benefits are going to the right people. Benefits would definitely go to everybody, including those who need it most, if we went that direction of just not having a drop-in fee. Thanks.
Councilor Murillo, and I know we've got 5 minutes to go, and I really do want to stop on time.
Thanks, Councilor Novick. I just wanted to respond to something that Councilor Ryan brought up about the low income. We don't do a lot of means testing for people to access parks programs, but as someone who worked on SNAP benefits before being on city council, I just have to say that means testing requires infrastructure, which requires dollars. So when we need to verify who is low income to see who actually gets to access those programs, that ends up costing us a lot more money than if we do the honor system. And I think that it's actually really special that we have a community of people who are willing to pay sometimes more, sometimes less, in order to ensure that everybody gets it. And I think that Portlanders are trustworthy enough to use that system well. But yeah, whenever we do means testing, it costs us infrastructure, it costs us money, it costs us time. So thank you.
Seeing no one else in the queue, I would like to entertain a motion to have the report, document number 2026-040, be sent to the full council. The recommendation to be accepted.
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Canal moves. I think, was that Councilor Rio seconding?
Yes.
Okay. The motion has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, will the clerk please call the roll?
Apologies, Co-Chair Novick, just to note.
Oh, sorry. I forgot to mention that we had no public testimony because nobody signed up for oral public testimony.
That's correct. Thank you. Motion by Canal, second by Murillo. Avalos.
Aye.
Canal.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Murillo.
Aye.
Novick.
Aye.
With 5 ayes, the motion carries, and the report, document number 2026-040, will move to the full council with the recommendation it be accepted.
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, colleagues, so much. We're actually ending with 2.5 minutes to go. Our next meeting is Thursday, February 12th, and this meeting of the Climate Land Use and Resilience Committee is adjourned.